Hey, what up guys, and welcome to another episode of Creased. Now, when I was a kid, growing up in the 90s, sneakers caught me at a very early age. We're talking primary school, right? Nowadays that seems pretty typical, but like, back in the day it was more like high school and everything where you start paying attention to fashion. But the two sneakers, the first pair of sneakers that really caught my attention were the Reebok Pumps. I mean, there's an orange basketball on the tongue that like you pump and then air goes in your shoe, and like a kid at school had them and would let me pump them, and I just thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I didn't even think of I didn't think to ask for them or anything as a kid. Whether or not I would have got them is another story, but like, it's one of those things that just seemed unattainable, but they caught my attention. The other one was these black and purple LA Gear shoes that lit up. Now when we think of light up shoes, we think of like real little kids with like something with Marvel or Bluey or whatever, and they light up, and it's pretty much a novelty thing, right? Well, this was as well, but these were huge. Like LA Gear in the 90s here in Australia, I want to say early to mid 90s in Australia, huge. And I've often wondered what happened to them, but to get there we're gonna go all the way back.
LA Gear started off as an idea to cash in on the fitness craze going on in LA in the late 70s. The company was started by a guy named Robert Greenberg, who had initially acquired a license for shoe skates. Not long into it, realized the best part of this acquisition was actually the uppers of the shoes. And in 1983, the company was born. The name of the company actually came from a contest that was run to name it. It went public in 1987. The company was firmly focused on women's fitness market until the late 80s, where they started to look at casual sneakers and men's sneakers as well. In the early 90s, they would switch their focus again towards the NBA and basketball sneaker market. Their first initial big signing was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who had been a long time endorsee of Adidas. They would go on to sign several other NBA stars, including the mailman Karl Malone. In 1990, they signed a popular NFL star in Joe Montana to an endorsement deal after severing his ties with Adidas as well. The problem with the way they were doing business is that we're targeting older players who were on their way out rather than up-and-coming stars that people were excited about, like Nike, Adidas, and Reebok were doing. They would also look towards non-athletes to endorse their brand. This hadn't been done before. Artists like Belinda Carlisle, Paula Abdul, and even Michael Jackson signed with LA Gear in the 90s. Michael even had a signature shoe with the brand, but the relationship would sour after sales of the shoe fell well below expectations. The release of the shoe was to center around an album that never actually came out. Both parties would then go on to sue each other. Still, at one time in the 90s, LA Gear was third in the marketplace. That's pretty crazy. One thing that set them apart was their distribution, as they were not only in sports stores but also department stores, which gave them a lot more eyes on their brand than others had access to at this time. This was a unique approach, and their overall view towards marketing could be entirely attributed to their success. But where Nike and Adidas would focus on innovation, LA Gear would just go to trade shows in China and look to rebrand things. This led to some lawsuits with Nike and Reebok that would in turn mean that LA Gear had to license tech from other companies, which would cut into their margins. Stock prices would drop and the company was set to come undone. Robert Greenberg steps down as CEO in 1992, and within the year he starts Skechers. He's still there to this day, and if you look at Skechers, he's still going to trade shows. An outside company would come into the fold in an effort to turn it around, and out of that era came a shining light that is LA Lights. This was the most successful shoe in the company's history. It was initially launched in Foot Locker to kids for $50, and the company was turning over 5 million pairs a year in the 90s, with an overall 100 million pairs sold just in the 90s. In 1994, they abandoned the men's range and strictly focused on their women and kids range. In 1995, LA Gear signed a 3-year deal with Walmart to create a cheaper range that was only for Walmart, but the deal was a bust. They attempted several relaunches, the first of which was in 2003, where they even had Ron Artest wearing their shoes in conjunction with his True Warrior persona. He didn't last long with the company after being dropped after the infamous Malice at the Palace incident. In 2008, LA Gear tried to re-release the range that had once been designed for Michael Jackson, but now with Chris Brown in a range of different colours. In 2014, they tried to re-release the LA Lights, this time in a gold colourway with the rapper Tiger. Although there were a few attempts to recreate the popularity in the 80s and 90s, the world seems to have moved on.
I didn't realise when I did this bit of research, I found some videos on YouTube, articles, everything like that. I didn't realise, for one, that the LA Gear light up shoes were called LA Knights. I didn't realise that that wasn't all they were known for. I definitely didn't know they were from the 70s. I mean, like, I've never heard any reference of it until right now. The crazy, you know, they named it from a competition. Like, everything about it is very California. But yeah, the crazy thing I didn't know was the Michael Jackson shoe. Like, I never even heard of that until I did this research. And look, let's be honest, looking at them, they look terrible. But the thing that I really enjoyed about finding out about this shoe was Michael Jackson was getting paid $20 million, and the idea of that was he wanted to be paid more than Michael Jordan. It was purely out of pettiness that he wanted this. Now, they designed a sneaker for him. They were trying to rebrand Michael, you know, for the 90s and everything. But hip hop was becoming this big thing, and they're trying to, sneakers are huge, they're trying to cash in on that, right? And Michael Jackson is the biggest star in the world at the time. But things like that, if he had created this album, wore them, and like done all this promotion, it potentially could have been big. Now, one of the things they do say about the shoe as a reason why it didn't really take off is the chains and the leather. It gave images of like biker gangs or rebellious, and you know, things that parents didn't want their kids having. They didn't want to go, oh, these pair of shoes are going to make my kid a gang member. But that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. But the other part of it was the album just never coming out. It ended up being a greatest hits, so there wasn't any like new music videos to where he could promote it, things like that. There was an ad though. Like, the ad was pretty crazy. That apparently that ad where there was no music, there was no really anything to promote, and if you didn't know the shoe he was wearing was an LA Gear shoe, like, you just wouldn't know. But yeah, look, take all that into consideration. Tiger then came out years later trying to revive it. I'm not gonna lie, that all gold, my name being MITUS, that liquid gold LA Knight, I might have to try and cop that. I believe it flopped, but I'm still gonna have to try and cop that. Even when I'm seeing the Michael Jackson ones on eBay, they're not going for crazy amounts. These are something that did not sell at all. Like, some stores even reported selling 1 or 2 pairs. Crazy. It says to me that, you know, that money that went into, say, Michael Jackson for the promotion, they didn't then back end that with some actual promotion. Because I feel like 90s, 80s, 90s, you're marketing anything with Michael Jackson, it should sell. But hey, it is what it is. Now, one of the things we mentioned in the little script there is an investment company has taken over it. It's been bought and resold a bunch of times and licensed and relicensed and everything like that. And the main reason we're doing this right now is because, like, you go into Big W right now and they got LA Gear. and it is the original retro style logo on t-shirts, hats, beanies, clothing, hoodies, whatever, right? But then they've also got shoes. But before I knew they had shoes, I'm like, oh, I wonder if they got shoes. I wonder if they got the light up joints that I wanted when I was a kid. They didn't. They had like a bunch of like gym runners and like real basic stuff. There was a shoe that kind of looked like, I want to say like a mix between an Air Force One and a Forum, right? Just like a leather shoe. And it's not a bad looking shoe. So if you're a kid, right, can't afford no Air Force Ones, whatever, your mum gets you them, they're still kind of fresh, in my opinion. I tried, they had some sort of running shoe that felt like, it was like Boost or something. I tried them on and they were super comfy. They were like super comfy. They didn't look too bad either if you just wanted like a generic type shoe for the gym. Not bad. They had like a canvasy type joint. You know, there's quite a range. And I believe in kids and maybe women's, they had some sort of high top shoe. And again, I was hoping for the lights, but they weren't there. Now what they've done is something that Everlast, Echo, Zoo York, plenty of brands have done before. They've had like a peak period, they've got to a certain point, sold a majority ownership, or whatever, companies buy and swap it, relicense it, try and get the most money out of it, and basically kill the authenticity of the brand. Sounds a little bit harsh, doesn't it? But that's what they're doing. When you look at, say, Zoo York was like a streetwear skate brand. Echo was a lot the same. Like, I got a lot of vintage pieces from Echo that are fire. You know what I mean? They got in some actual graffiti artists doing crazy stuff. Like, it started from a graffiti artist. So to keep that on, dope. But what was said before with like Echo coming in, if you had Echo at Kmart, right, it's still kind of fresh. So if you got like Kmart gear, like it's still kind of fresh. This is the same thing with the LA Gear stuff, and I am seeing some people wearing it. When I was in the city, I want to say the video we did for the 40% off membership sale, I seen people rocking LA Gear out and about. So I don't know, man. It seems like whoever owns the company right now, they are just trying to milk it, you know, like LA Gear, prominent in America, did okay over here, maybe UK, that sort of thing. And if you put it into Big W like they have done here, maybe you get a few sales based out of nostalgia, and maybe people just see LA and it looks kind of cool for Big W clothing. I'm not sure, because it's all going pretty cheap. But for me, I just kind of hope they bring back the light up joints. I feel like when Everlast did their deal with Kmart, the product side, like the boxing bags, the gloves, everything was still, that was a different license, right? So they still had the quality over there, but the clothing was cheap. And it was a weird situation, because people associate then the stuff with Kmart. So I don't know, Fila kind of worked around this for a while when they were doing stuff in Target, but they still had stuff in like Hype and all this type of thing. I don't know, I feel like it could work. Maybe I'm just trying to justify it to myself and you guys at home so I can finally get them black and purple joints. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you remember LA Gear. Did you rep LA Gear? Did you want LA Gear? Are you seeing it now and it's giving you that little piece of nostalgia? Because at the end of the day, when we're doing this whole sneaker thing, it's all about nostalgia. There's been another episode of Creased. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and we'll be back twice a week. Peace.